You started soon with the claim for the referendum.
Yeah, essentially, our main objective wasn't based on electoral objectives, or say like elect me and then when I get elected, then I'll do something. It's more on a fast-paced, fast lane process of we don't have time to wait for us to get elected. Our strategy is not to let's first get elected, let's first become a huge party, and then when we are elected and we are sitting down, then we do something. Our strategy was more we gotta act now because the economic situation is really
Because
poor.
you would never be elected.
And let's lobby the current representative to do what we want them to do, and have been very successful in doing that, and that's what the surprise of Independence of Veneta, that we managed to get our agenda across even without having seats in the regional government.
But because you would never be elected, probably.
No, we could do, but it's more of a medium-term goal, and we don't have time to wait. So why wait?
Why you don't have time to wait?
Well, we don't have time to wait because the economic situation is pretty bad. I mean, that's the difference between Veneto and Scotland or Catalonia. Catalonia is more like South Tyrol, meaning that it has a strong autonomy already. It doesn't really have. Okay, the crisis is there for everyone, but they're not doing that bad economically because they do have their own resources already. They already have a strong autonomy, so they're not in that bad of a shape. Scotland, as you know, it's not a colony the way Veneto is. The difference between taxes and services, it's not even close. Actually, Scotland perhaps gets a little bit more than what they pay in taxes, so they don't have that particular necessity. In Veneto, instead, the situation is very dramatic, and especially with the crisis, because it's based on small, medium enterprises. It already has one of the highest tax rates in the world and has just a fraction of the resources coming back as services. So we have firms, businesses closing. There's a high rate of suicides due to the crisis. So we need to give an answer immediately, a political answer. And the only answer we see is political independence.
How do you think this independence would act in favor of this economic renaissance?
It's first of all, I think the important question is why independence and not, a more federal system or more autonomy and all that. Because it's true that you could solve the economic issues with other sort of political solutions. Basically, you could just have a federal state. If Italy became a federal system like Switzerland or Germany or the United States, it would just solve all the problems because the resources would stay here. You would have autonomy in setting the tax rates. You could lower taxes. You could just be more have a say in how to administer your public life, your resources. Or the same if you become an autonomous region like Trentino or Sicily or Sardinia, right? So you think that would be a viable solution, which it would be a solution. The problem is not much the objective. That's saying, okay, we can accept a federal state or autonomy because that gives us enough taxes to keep here, to have our economy prosper. The problem is the process. Basically, in order to make a federal system or to give autonomy to Veneto, you need to reform the Italian state. And the only entity that can reform the Italian state is the Italian parliament. And we see that as mathematically impossible because you have a situation where a minority pays more than it gets and a majority that takes more than it gets. So we could even get 100% of the votes in Veneto or in Lombardy, which is a region that has our same situation, but we would always be a minority in Rome. So we will never have that type of reform because you would have to have members of parliament from Calabria, from Sicily, from Campania, from Naples, from Rome that would say, oh, we don't want the billions of euros from Veneto anymore, we want them to keep it. And that just doesn't make any logical sense. It's just human nature. If you have the control of somebody else's resources, you're not going to give them up. So we see a reform of the Italian state as impossible. Any kind of reform, really. Any kind of true reform. So essentially, if that's not possible, you think that it's not possible to have a democratic solution to an irreformable country. But that's not the case, because there's the right to self-determination, which essentially can be summarized as being, we're part of a club, and in order to reform the club, we need everybody's consent, or at least the majority of the club members. But if the majority of club members are not in favor of reforming, and they're okay that we pay more dues than anybody else and you get nothing out of it, I don't have to be part of the club. I mean, I can choose to say, look, I like you guys, I'll come to visit you, but I don't want to be part of this club. And that's essentially the nature of self-determination. It's basically, I don't have to be part of this. And that's why, even though independence might seem as more extreme than autonomy or a federal system, it's the process that counts. Autonomy of federalism are impossible processes for a moderate objective. Independence is an ambitious objective, but it's a much easier and straightforward process, and that's why we are going straight forward with that, and we are not taking any compromises. It's got to be a unilateral decision of Venetian people, or Veneto people.
Your website published some polls that show that in each county here in Veneto there is a majority that is pro-independence.
Yeah, the first poll was made. It's a scientific poll. First of all, it was made.
How would you say that it is a scientific poll?
Well, we basically commissioned this institute, this research institute from Bergamo, which is called MPS Marketing, which is a well-known and well-established statistical or research institute. And we asked them to do a poll because we really needed to know that information, because a couple of years ago we were assuming that the majority of Venets did not want independence. We just assumed that. So our propaganda was based on, we need to convince people that it's a good deal. And then essentially first as we were doing that, we figured, well, when do we know that we can move to the next step? Basically say not more convincing people, but actually taking action to go ahead and do it. So we figure, well, we got to do a scientific poll that is, with the margins of errors, that it's representative of the population, and we paid a few thousand euros in order to do it. We did it in January 2012, and to our surprise, we found out that the majority of Venets were in favor, out of 5 million people, because we're not talking about just Venice, we're talking about a region that's pretty much all of northeastern Italy. So out of 5 million people, 53% would vote yes in a referendum for political independence. Then we redid the same exact poll after 1 year, so basically this past winter, and that
in January 2013.
January 2013, and that percentage went up to 57%. So perhaps due to the crisis, perhaps I hope due to our work, but the percentage went up from 53% to 57%. And of course, having paid so much money, and also we asked different questions. We also had a detail of the geographical distribution of the yes, the ideological distribution of the yes, based on age, based on work, jobs, this kind of thing. So we had a very good picture of where we could work on attaining even more support for this.
Okay, what are your relations with the Lega Nord?
We don't really have a relationship, except that the Northern League is also at the head of the regional government here. So there's an institutional relationship. We're lobbying them just as much as any other political party, but we're quite different. We're quite different and the important reason is that we're for independence, and they sometimes they might speak about independence, but more like of a sign of anger, or because they can't, of frustration because they can't do anything else. But really, they're a movement for autonomy, for more evolution, that kind of stuff. So that's the difference. The second important difference is on other issues, like for example, they are more a racist movement. Not really. I know a lot of people. They're not really quite racist, but their forefront people are. So they give the image for the rest, and we are totally the opposite. We don't.
Can you expand a bit on this? How you are totally opposite? What would it be your immigration policy if you were an independent state?
Well, I think it would be strict in the case that it's a crowded place, and it's not that anybody can come. You gotta have a job permit, or you gotta apply rules. It's not anybody can come. As in any if you have a house.
But the majority of your electorate would be quite strict, quite racist as well.
No, not at all.
You don't think so?
Not at all. I think that's the wrong perspective, because we talk about it, and no, that's a really wrong perception of Venetians in general. Because if you look around, even here in Venice, you see a lot of Venetians that are married with foreigners. You see a lot of
That's
kids.
quite arguable. It is quite arguable that this could be an argument in favor of your political ideas.
I don't think so, because I think if you really know the electorate here, it's not. I mean, think about it. I mean, look at Venice. Venice was a multicultural city. It always has been for centuries. I mean, if you look around, the names of the neighborhoods, there's like Fondego dei Tedeschi, Fondego dei Turchi, Ponte dei Greci, Riva degli Schiavoni, Calle degli Albanesi. It was a very multicultural city because it was open to commerce throughout the world. So it always has thrived due to commerce and due to integration. So that's first of all our history. And second of all, it's still true today, because if Veneto has been in the past a successful economic story, is because we have been exposed to the world. I mean, we are a country of exporters. I mean, we are people that thrive because we make stuff and we sell it abroad. I mean, that's more than any Italian regions, and the most also maybe with as much as Holland in Europe. So that's basically our real. The core of our nature, and it's a total misconception that we are closed and that we don't want any exposure to the outside. So essentially, going back to immigration policy, of course you would have a strict immigration policy that it's not anybody that want to come can come. It's based on whether there's a job, then you come, whether there's enough room, you can come. But we're not going to discriminate. If you're Norwegian, you can come, and if you're from Tunisia, you can't.
Would you have a regulation on the right of soil if you were?
You mean jus soli or jus sanguinis?
Yeah.
I'm very indifferent on that, because I really don't. I would tend more on jus solis, but basically that doesn't give you a carte blanche just to come. It's still based on whether there's room. But then, we get people that are signed up to our movement that are either from southern Italy or from Albania, and there are people that have been living here from Africa. Actually, there are people that have been living here for quite some time. They're very integrated, and they're very part of Veneto's culture and society. So to me, those are more Veneto than somebody that has a grandparent that are Venetians, but they, second generation in Argentina or United States. They might have the cultural ties, but you're not. You don't live the problems that we live. I mean, I feel more close to the Albanian father with a job here that has the same struggles of living in a society that is not thriving because of a state that it's absurd, than somebody that doesn't live here. So that's
Going back to economy, how would you explain your relation, the motivation, the first motivation of your movement? It is an economic motivation, and you trace back on history, or it was a historical route, and then there is
well. I think if
an additional motivation in economy?
I think I gotta give you two answers. If I have to speak for myself, I would be for independence no matter what. I mean, even if we did not have all the economic reasons. I mean, I discovered through being an economist, I discovered a lot of reasons that go beyond the accounting reason. We're not getting enough money back for what we've paid. There's more reasoning than if we have time we can get to it. So. There's a bunch of that, but even if there wasn't any of that, I would still be for independence. So personally, it's something that is in my heart, and that has an historical and cultural reasons. Having said that, our message is by far mostly based on economic reasons. Because if I have to count people just like me that would be for independence no matter what, would just be obviously a minority. If we want to reach a democratic majority, we have to, appeal also to people that are indifferent to whether history, culture, and that kind of stuff. They have their own life and their own problems, but they're very sensitive to economic reasons. If you lose a job, you say, wait, there's something that's going wrong. And I'm sick and tired of Italy as a state because it's irreformable, and we have tried everything. And if this solution is going to give me economic prosperity, I want it. So that's the two answers. Personally, my personal motivation is not economic, but our main card is economic.
Okay, the core question is, what would you be your foreign policy?
My foreign policy?
Yeah, the foreign policy of Veneto as an independent nation, and specifically in relation to the European Union. Are you pro-European, or you?
Okay, usually the official answer that we give is, of course, once you're independent, you gotta renegotiate everything, and you would have to maybe have popular votes on important issues like the Euro, European Union, NATO, so on and so forth. But I also obviously have a personal opinion on all these things. I believe that it would be a good reason to remain part of the European Union, even though the European Union, as we know it today, has a lot of things that are not quite functioning. Basically, it's becoming like a centralist system as opposed to a more confederation of states that gives emphasis to differences. Okay.
We may agree on this, but what do you think your electorate thinks about this? Don't you think that many people that vote for independence mean this also against European Union?
I don't think so, because then you might find people that buy the message that's being said in Italian television. It's basically the Italian propaganda is, hey, it's not our fault, it's Germany's fault. So it's like saying they're the bad guys, it's the Euro's fault, we are good. And that's not the case. Okay, the reason is the problem is a fiscal problem due to Italian mismanagement of public resources. Because Austria is also part of the Euro, is part of the European Union, and does not have the same problems that we do. So I believe that I strongly believe that a relatively small state like Veneto can only thrive if it's part of a bigger community. We cannot become communist Albania with customs borders. Okay, we need to have free movement of capital, free movement of people, free movement of labor, free movement of goods. So those are the main principles of the European Union, and I strongly believe in that.
Okay, but besides propaganda, I would like a specific answer on what your electorate thinks about Europe.
I think that right now, because of the crisis, there's a little bad taste about. But there's also confusion. There are a lot of people who don't know the difference between the European Union and the Euro. Okay, so it's really also important to give the correct information. And right now we're not focusing on that. We're focusing on independence. It's a fiscal problem, and Italy is the problem as a state, and the only way out is independence. Everything else is second. So we focus just on that. So the electorate right now is a little bit confused, but I think that that when it comes down to it, it's being people, a lot of businessmen, a lot of small, medium enterprises sells in Germany that have factories in Romania, in Tunisia, all over the world. They go back and forth with China and India. They want an open society, especially commercially speaking, and they will be in favor of European Union. That's the first thing. As far as the euro goes, it's a little bit different. I'm a little bit more indifferent about the euro, basically about monetary policy. A lot of people think that, hey, if you're an independent country, you need your independent monetary policy. But they confuse the fact that anyway, in order to have a well-functioning monetary policy, it needs to be independent from the fiscal authority. So really, it wouldn't make much difference whether you have the European Central Bank, the Bank of Italy, or the Bank of Veneto, because it's supposed to be an independent entity. I think asking whether we want to be in the Euro and the European Union is basically asking, do you want to become like Switzerland, no Euro, no EU? Do you want to become like Denmark, no Euro, yes EU? Or do you want to become like Austria, yes Euro and yes EU? From our perspective, where we come from, we'd say any of those three is okay. Basically, we're indifferent. Those are not the important things. I think that once we're independent, we could function well within also the euro, because we could be just like Austria, just like Finland, and I think it can have a lot of advantages to have a common monetary policy. But that's not a crucial aspect. If we want to become like Denmark or Great Britain, it's fine. That's not a big issue to me.
Okay, so you as a political leadership of your movement, what do you think about the relation with the European Union? I mean, do you think the ability to renegotiate terms of European Union is a key aspect in your claim for independence?
Yeah.
Besides your personal case that you are independent.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that would have to be renegotiated because, for example, what do they call the quote latte? I don't know in English. That there's free movement thing except for agriculture. Agriculture is like let's
it's
not
part
compete.
Of the common agricultural policy.
Yeah, let's not compete. Everybody gets their quotas. The problem is that there's a bargaining table, and we're not represented as Veneto because we delegated our interest to Rome, which does not uses us as a colony and doesn't do our interest. So, for example, they bartered other interests for our own interest, and we essentially got screwed as far as the milk quotas, in order to give priority to steel quotas, which are not like the core important to our economy. So if we would have to renegotiate, definitely something like the milk quotas would have to be renegotiated because it's really killed our agricultural industry here. And certain things, we would have more representation at the bargaining table in Europe, and certain things will definitely be renegotiated to do our own interests, but our interests are Europe's interests.
I would ask you now to have a little bit of broader perspective and look to the rest of Europe, and I would like to ask you, what do you think it is the future of Europe? Because besides your movement, there are several others. Is this the twilight of the national state, national country?
I think so, and I hope so. I think the same sort of reform that Eastern Europe went through in 1989 till 91, 93, Western Europe is going to go through. We saw 25 years ago the end of the communist system. In some way, we're seeing the end of the socialist system, if we want to call it as such. Basically, we lived with credit cards as public entities. Okay, we accumulated debt. We were not we were in a system where you spend, and then our children would pay for it. Well, we are that generation that has to pay for it, and some countries are on the verge of collapse before others, but that's the trend. And the solution to it is to have to get rid of big nation states that are not that's too far away from citizens. So a country like Italy is completely obsolete because it's too heterogeneous and it's not well functioning. And it's probably the same in Spain or in the United Kingdom or in Belgium. So I think that there will be a democratic process based on common sense that would see a more united Europe, but based on entities that are closer to citizens. Basically have to get rid of the middleman. Okay, Rome is a middleman. Madrid is a middleman. In some way, London is a middleman. Brussels is a middleman. We got to get rid of them and have governments that are closer to citizens.
What are the relations with Veneto Stato?
They're good.
Because you're saying that you're gonna merge again, but
merge
why
is
did you
the wrong
split?
word. Let's say that I was the what's it called? I guess the chairman of Veneto Stato when it got founded. It was part of a merger of different little realities, and we went on as this entity for about a year. Then there was basically a convention that didn't get to anything. There was just basically a breakup with it, and we went on with two distinct realities within the same name. At one point, we decided there's no point in having this confusion in the name. Let's just change the name to clear, that what we're doing is us and not somebody else. And our work was successful and we thrived because the new name was Indipendenza Veneta, while the rest just went to nothing. And basically now they kept breaking up and they basically ended up into nothing. But since our objective is not really, it's basically independence, and I'm friends with a lot of those people. We did a press conference last week showing that now we see the goal, which is this referendum for independence, and we're all working in parallel. We're not against each other. We're all working in parallel. It doesn't matter names and all that.
There are any major differences?
And we're also having a big party on July 7th.
Sorry?
We're having a joint party at Sagra dei Veneti next July 7th, whatever day it is. So there's really not a problem. There's no personal problems as far as it goes. It's also a little bit the natures of Venice. You kind of have to be your own. If you think that's the way to do it, the thing is go ahead and do it. I'm not going to stop you. Go ahead and do it under whatever name you want to use it. And if it works, you are right and you take us there faster. And if it doesn't work, you can come back and, friends as before. It's not a big deal.
But you don't think there is any major differences between your political discourse? You are focused on the same thing? Besides independence?
Well, no, there are different strategies. There are different such as we focused on results first, not elections first. Basically, we do participate to elections, but that's just to scare people that are sitting there. Say, look, if you don't do our agenda, we're gonna be the next one sitting there. So you might as well do it now and get popular support because we have it. So our election participation is to get to the referendum first. It's not the other way around. We're not trying to sell the referendum, let's say, to win the elections. It's basically, hey, elect me because if you elect me, we'll do the referendum. That's the difference in approach, and people here are
elections are meant to lobby for the referendum, basically.
Yeah, to show your muscles. Because if we didn't have that, nobody would care about us because yeah, we'll work, and I'm gonna get the votes from your work, and we're essentially saying no, we're gonna get our vote, and you're not, and you're gonna lose your seat because we're growing and you're shivering. I mean, you're basically reduced inside. So you might as well get your act straight now instead of waiting. But not the other way around. If you do the other way around and you say, I elect me, and then if you get elected, I'll do the referendum. People are fed up because they've been sick and tired of fake promises that the Northern League did, especially in this area, and they don't buy it. So other reality is they've said, yes, I'm for independence, but vote me first. And that doesn't take you anywhere.
I checked yesterday, but you are not part of the European Free Alliance.
No, but in this sort of like press conference we did together, Comincini was there, and his full support to us, and with the full support to him. So it's Fabrizio Comincini, the guy that's part of the European Free Alliance. So it's not that I have to be there. We got one of our guys is not part of Independence Event. It's part of another group, but we call him up and talk to each other. It's not a matter of who sits in what seat. I don't care. And in fact, I think I don't really, there's been a lot of contacts with other similar reality in other areas like Sardinia or Sicily or Friuli or Catalonia or Scotland and so on and so forth. But really, first of all, you gotta count here. You can be the best body everywhere else, but if you don't count anything here, you haven't really done anything. So that's very secondary. We don't need to have a lot of foreign policy as far as independence movements. We need to work at home.
Just one last question. I asked you your relations with Lega Nord, but I didn't ask you how would you say you are different from Lega Nord, because Lega Nord was expelled from the European Free Alliance, for instance.
One of the reasons probably racist reasons. Probably another reason is I don't know if that's why they get expelled, but also they're more like in protectionism. I mean, for them, the solution: if our firms don't sell abroad, let's not have foreign products, imported here, which is complete stupidity. So I don't really follow exactly, all the shameful things of their policies. I think it worked for a while, but people are fed up. People were voting for them not because they believed in that kind of rhetoric, but because they saw the least worst, basically. Even though they're idiots, they're the closest to my interests because they at least they talk about autonomy. Okay, so I'm gonna close my nose and vote for them, even though they stink. But now they're basically over.
Would you say you are a leftist party or a rightist party?
We are above. I think ideologies are something from the 19th century. If you look at practice, there's no left or right. Of course, having the highest tax rates in the world, and that's the case.
Let's say then you would say you are a Democratic or a Republican. Then these are categories that are still valid.
I don't like to be put into little jars. Give me an issue, I'll tell you. I'm for lowering taxes because we don't have a 5% tax here. We got over 50% tax rates if you put them all together. So I'm definitely for lowering taxes, but drastic lowering. I'm for a federal system. I want a sales tax to be for each province, so they can compete with one another, lowering and have more efficient public system because you're competing with your neighbor. I'm for you elect the head of the police in your town, or you elect the judge because they're not supposed to be put from above. I mean, I'm not really describing stuff that I'm making up. It's stuff that is actually working elsewhere. I'm for local referendums of important issues. I don't think that you can't apply a tax unless it's specifically approved and made for a specific service. I know I'm paying this tax because I want a bridge built, and we voted to have that tax for 5 years. I want more responsibility for the citizens, and I want the public system to become better managed. And the only way that you can manage better is to bring it closer to the citizens, so basically more decentralized system. So there's a bunch of that also, how I envision the independent Venetian Republic. But right now we're still trying to have the referendum passed.
Okay, what's the date of the referendum,
Well,
if there is any?
right now actually, soon we'll have a lot of dates. Right now there's still a few uncertainties that needs to be passed. So essentially there was a resolution passed by the regional governments, saying we have the right to self-determination, and we want to do a referendum, and we're gonna, contact the international community, and we're gonna put a judicial committee to tell us what to do. So we basically did everything. We wrote that resolution. We made them vote. We kind of did our lobbying and say vote this, and we managed to get it passed. Then we wrote the bill in order to have the referendum, and we had one guy in there to present it for us. One regional part of the regional council presented. Then we had this judicial committee. Insediata basically started back in March, and we had one of our lawyers be part of it. So now they completed it last week. Now they're doing the final relazione, the final document that summarizes what all 6 people in this judicial committee said. A couple were against, a couple were in favor, one said I'm indifferent, one had so let's do a multiple choice referendum, which is a stupid idea, but everybody had different take. But the important thing is that all of them said it's not forbidden. It might not be worth it, according to somebody, it might be worth it, but nobody said it's forbidden. Anyway, once they pass it, and they will pass it, then it will be voted in the regional council within 2 weeks. So if everything goes as planned, by July, the bill to have a referendum for independence is going to pass. And in the bill, the date said was October 6th. Now, I know this was this year. Now, so that was bill was written in February. Now, I don't know if they pass it toward the end of July, they might say, hey, October 6th is a little bit too close, let's put it in November. So that's why we still have uncertainties. But I'm confident that in July we're going to pass the law to have the referendum, and the referendum will be made before Christmas 2013.
Okay, thanks very much.
All right, thank you.